Hello and welcome to this episode of Pipeline to Profitability. I'm Alan Ferguson, and this podcast is proudly sponsored by Service Success Academy. Now, today I'm joined by Jairek Robbins. Jairek optimizes human performance. He is a best-selling author. FastCompany calls him inspiring and says he'll make your life less ordinary. Forbes says Jairek will teach you how to succeed. Deepak Chopra will advise you to go to Jairek to help create meaning and fulfillment in your life. Tracy applauds Jairek's ability to teach people how to develop meaning and purpose in life and then to make a difference in the life of others. Looking for ways to level up in life and business? Jairek is your guy, so let's get started. Welcome to the podcast, Jairek. It's really, really good to see you again. I hope you're well, living the dream in Puerto Rico, and so this is going to be fun, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So tell me, what's happening in your life? I know you've got plenty going on, and you are very inspirational. It was an absolute honor to meet you and the lovely Amanda in Beaver Creek with Stephen and his lovely wife, Katie. And I've been wanting to get you on the podcast for so long because I know you're going to add massive value to our audience.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to do it as well.
So I did a podcast a little while back with a lovely lady by the name of Lee Miltier. Now, Lee, the podcast was all about mindset and is success an inside game? And I know this is your area of expertise, and I deal with contractors that some are going really well and some are really finding it difficult to navigate through. There's a little bit of a change in the economy. So I'd like to spend as much time as possible on mindset and how do we make it easier for our contractor friends to actually succeed in biz.
Yep. So mindset's a piece of what I do. And it's probably the longest piece of what I've been doing for 20 years now. And when it comes to mindset, there's only a few pieces that people need to pay attention to. The simplest starting point, though, for most is we get caught up in what are the consequences if we mess this up. Consequences are anxiety, brain fog, not being able to focus, feeling stressed out, feeling overwhelmed, constantly worrying, having mental loops or that rumination where you're waking up at 2 a.m. and you're worried about all the stuff going on in your world. Eventually, it's mental decline, it's loss of memory, it's isolation, desperation, feeling depressed, feeling separate and alone. Those are the consequences if you mess up your mindset, which I think is worth spending a few moments every day building the right mindset to give you the upside or the possible upside, which is mental clarity. Mental resilience, the ability to make it through hard times, the ability to stay calm and focused and centered when all hell's breaking loose around you, the ability to see through the storm and know exactly where you're going, no matter how rough the seas are, no matter how crazy life gets. And so I work with people, and I've had the privilege to work with special operators, former Navy SEALs, the best and brightest professional athletes, NFL, MLB, professional soccer players, Olympians, runners, sprinters, jumpers, and all these different people. And like you said, the majority of their work comes down to mindset. And I'll start at the beginning. Most people say, well, you got to focus on what you want. You got to have a dream. You got to have a vision. You got to have goals. If that was the thing that made the difference, then all of the Olympic runners who line up on the same line would have all won gold. They all had the same goal. All of them walked up to the starting line and got down in their little stance and put their hands down and stood up, and then the gun went. All of them had the same goal. Why is one finished gold and one has the memory that they got to run and didn't win anything? It wasn't the goal. So we got to scrap that and say, okay, a goal is a great starting place, but that's not what makes the difference for someone winning and someone losing, or someone succeeding and someone failing, or someone enjoying their life and someone not. So what is the difference? Well, then people start to look at the human being. What can really affect our mindset? I think there's some main components. And the way I know they're main components is if you take them away, the human being starts to fall apart. The most important component I've seen over time is sleep. 7.5 to 8 hours of high quality sleep. Now, this one's interesting because I grew up with a father who said, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I don't need sleep. And he spent the majority of his life, teaching stuff from 10 in the morning till 4 in the morning, getting 6 hours or maybe 4 hours of sleep. And everyone's like, how does he do it? And at this stage of life, he's only 63, turning 64. There are some consequences that have caught up with him in his health because of that choice or behavior. And so what I'm starting to see, the research shows people who consistently get that 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep, dementia possibilities go down, memory loss goes down, heart attack risk goes down. It's like all these things, you can mitigate all these problems just by putting that one habit into place. And then we got to reverse engineer that and say, okay, if sleep is one of the major components of strong mental resilience and mental health, what are the things that could mess us up around this concept? Well, the types of food we eat, the types of beverages we choose, if we're taking care of our body or not. And so the humans I work with tend to want high performance. They want to perform at a peak level over a consistent period of time. And so when I look at that, I say, if you want to be a high performing human, then we've got to compare you to high performing vehicles or machines in the world. And let's say you were an F1 race car. If you were an F1 race car and we spent $2 million building you, getting just the right engine and just the right shocks and just the right tires and just the right elements, would you be cool if we pour sand in your fuel tank? Is that okay?
No.
Every person in their right mind no, you can't pour sand in the fuel tank of an F1 race car. Are you kidding? That's like throwing $2 million down the drain. I said, that's interesting. How many of you are pouring sand down your own fuel tank, hoping that your engine's going to run at full capacity? And you would say that's insane. You're going to waste a $2 million car. You're going to destroy it. You're screw up the machine. It's not going to be worth anything. I think your body is worth more than $2 million. I can prove it to you. If someone says, I'll give $2 million that you die right now, 99.999% of us will go, no thanks. My life is worth more than that. Or let me put it another way. I said, if someone said, hey, I'll write you a $2 million check, but I get to shave 7 years off the end of your life. I'll write you a check right now, but whenever you were supposed to die, we're going to cut that back by 7 years, and that's when your life is now going to end. Does that work? Again, there might be 0.001% of humans who might be in a really tough position that going, oh, it might be worth it, but 99.999% of us are going to go, no way. I'm not trading my life for 7 years of my life for $2 million. It ain't worth it. And so we value our lives, but for some reason we don't consider the same consequences when it comes to pouring sand down our fuel tank. Other thing to think about, if you want to get the most out of yourself every day, what kind of fuel do you start the day with? Now imagine you're one of those people, you were just telling me there's huge multiples in these business. So you can grow your business to $10 million, and then one day sell it and get this huge payment, this huge cash out. Let's say you did it and you had enough money where you felt like you really made it. And your decision was, I'm going to go buy one of those jets. I'm going to get that Taylor Swift, Elon Musk. I'm going to get the fancy one, the Gulfstream 650 ER long range. I'm taking my whole family with me when we're going to go skiing. And let's say you decide to load it up. So you're in Houston. We go to the airport. We're running up the stairs saying hi to the pilots. And the pilot says just one thing. I know your whole family's on board. Every human being you love and care about, they're on board with us. We didn't have enough time this morning to really fuel up the tank. So we have enough fuel to probably make it halfway there. And then, we're just going to let it like coast in. We're just going to coast the rest. We're just going to try to hopefully catch a good tailwind and kind of just float it into the mountains, into the runways there. We're good, right? Most of us are you insane? You're going to try to kill all the people I love by not putting enough fuel in the tank to be ready for the day? And then just watch how most of us leave the house in the morning. Why is it that most of us aren't willing to put the right fuel and enough fuel in our mental, emotional, physical tank to take on the day? And our strategy is, I have enough to get started, and midday I'll hopefully have something. If not, I'll just kind of coast it in, and eventually I'll eat the right things. It's so interesting. All this stuff is simple. But if I watch you closely, most of you don't do it. How do I know that? Because I've worked with some of the best people on earth from all over earth. People who are the 10th richest people in their country, people who've achieved gold medals and done all the things. And I sit with them, and when I start to analyze their day and walk through step by step, you'd be surprised how often they just skipped a couple hours of sleep because an important project was coming on. Or they didn't have a chance to eat that morning because, there was a big meeting they needed to get to. Or like you go down the list and you hear the stories and excuses and you watch how quickly people fall off track. And so one of the things we provide is accountability. How do we set it up in a way where we can hold you accountable and help put the right systems, habits, and processes in place that keep you at your absolute best? That's the main focus.
Love it, Jairek.
I'll pause in case you have a different question.
No. So I'm put my contractor hat on, and I don't know too many contractors that actually follow what you've just explained. Now, some do. And, I deal with some of the top companies on the planet, and, the bigger companies that are able to bring in general managers and have positions and then step away so they're not operational in the business. But that's a less than 1%. So the majority of contractors are hardworking. They've got multiple hats. They're just dealing with the stresses of life. So
totally. They wake up, they grab a cup of coffee in the morning with a muffin, and they're off to work.
That sounds about right. So, and look, I fully understand what you said about your dad, and similar age to me, and I get it. Like, I don't know if I've ever slept more than 7.5 hours. I've got a monkey mind that sort of is always it's always activated, if that makes sense. And so a couple of tips just for our contractor friends who just they want to get the optimum, their mindset right, and really get focused on what they need to do. So a couple of tips on that, Jairek.
I'll start simple: input, output. And here, let me grab. I actually built a formula for this, and I'll walk you through it real quick. I apologize, I'm looking off camera. I'm just grabbing my notes. So if someone was trying to get to peak performance, the peak of the mountain, and I think there's something beyond the peak, which is fun, but let's say you're just trying to get to the peak version of yourself. Number one, you got to have a vision. What does that even look like? What does the best version of you even look like? Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, in your family, in your health, in all the parts of your life. If you could look out 10 years into the future, what does that look like? Another way I say this is imagine yourself, and let's go much further. Imagine yourself at 85 years old. What do you see? Now, for most people, when I do this exercise all over the world, they go, I stood up going, oh, my back. And I was like, well, whatever you see in your vision of where you're headed is probably where you're going to land up. And so I said, let's start with a better vision. And I give examples. I go pull Sister Madonna Bruder, who was 89 years old and competing in the Ironman competition in Canada. I was like, what if that was you at 89? That's very different than most of you imagine. What if you were practicing yoga? What if you were running? What if you were going on safari and traveling the world and having fun and doing all these things? So number one is we need to sculpt a vision that's worth going after, something exciting, something compelling. Number two, we got to then create a roadmap. I mean, if all you have is a vision 10 years out and you have no clue what the yellow brick road looks like to actually get there, it's going to be kind of hard to get to Oz if you don't have a path. And so we say, okay, let's create a path. Let's create a yellow brick road, a journey we can go on, and let's work it backwards. So 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year. All of a sudden, we have extreme clarity on what I need to do this year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years to be on pace and track to get to that 10-year vision for your personal life. Number three, habits. I don't know about you, but you can have all the goals in the world, and if you have habits that consistently take you off path, there's no chance it's ever going to add up to what you want. So we break that down and say, what are the habits you need each day to keep you on the path for that 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and eventually 10-year vision to get it to come true? Once you have habits, we have to make them easy, fun, and accessible. I don't know about you, but I'm not doing things that are hard, boring, and really difficult to assess. Like, no thanks. So easy, fun, and accessible. Once you've made it easy, fun, and accessible, then you got to add purpose. Why are you doing this? I've helped lots of business owners, and in the beginning, they wanted to make so much money, but after they make all the money, they noticed a bunch of their key members on their team keep leaving. They're like, well, we're all making a bunch of money. Why do people keep quitting? And it's all because they quit and they start going places that have purpose behind what they do, not just money. Once you have enough money, then purpose starts to be the reason why you want to show up and do the work. So same thing in your health, same thing in your relationship. What's the purpose? What will it mean? What will the ultimate joy, the ultimate win, the ultimate victory look like if you do it right? Next, you need rocket fuel. There's going to be days when you don't feel like it. It's going to be days when you don't want to do the habits that keep you on track. That's human. And so can you stack enough pain and pleasure in your brain to drive yourself to action and get yourself moving? Next up, we're going to measure. We're going to measure and track. How's it going? What does your trend look like? One of my favorite phrases is the trend is our friend. But we got to know, are we significantly improving over time, or are we sliding off track? So what do the trends look like? Next, we got to set the environment up to win. There's nothing worse than going on a diet, and every time you open the fridge, you got ho-hos and Twinkies and ding-dongs staring at you saying, eat me. It's kind of hard to succeed when the environment is set up against you. So we got to set up the environment. You got to throw all that stuff away, clear it out, and create an environment that has choices and options that are super supportive in what you're trying to do. Next up, 33% rule. This is where most people haven't even thought of this concept. Can you go create a peer group, 33% of which has already done what you're trying to do? 33% is at the exact same moment of the journey as where you are, and 33% is a step or two behind you. You can learn from the ones in front of you, share what's working with the ones at the same step, and help the ones behind you catch up. Have you built a peer group around this topic of your life that will inspire you and hold you accountable and help guide you in the process? Last final steps, optimize. Can you figure out how to practice the skill set over and over and over again until you can do more with less effort? In the beginning, it takes a ton of effort, but once you get good at the skill set, you can do more with less effort. Next up, pit stops. F1 race car. How far and how fast can you go before you need to refuel, and what does a refuel look like? If you go back to the 1950s, an F1 race pit stop took 5 minutes. 5 minutes. The car would pull in. One guy with a hammer would go knock one wheel off. The driver would get out of the car and have a Coca-Cola. They would, wipe the car down. They'd replace one wheel at a time, and 5 minutes later, the car would get pushed out into the race again. If you look at a pit stop nowadays, it went from one human being to 20 people on the pit team. It went from taking 5 minutes to now taking like 4.7 seconds. 4 new tires, fuel tank on the course. But most people, when I ask this next question, have never thought about it. And the question is, who's on your pit crew? When you need to refuel mentally, emotionally, physically, what does a pit stop look like? And who do you have on your crew to help you get back to your best self quickly? How often do you need to refuel? What does that look like? Keep going. Identity. Can you create an identity statement so you become this person that you're striving to be? Final steps, flow state. Can you find a way to fall in love with it where time disappears, you disappear, nothing else matters? Can you master the concept, meaning every time you pull the lever, you get the result? You have mastered this part of your life. And finally, true mastery is when you become an eternal student of the craft, meaning you forever study, learn, and practice everything you can on the topic. And so if you wanted a path, something you could use to actually get you to master whatever part of your life, your mindset, your health, your relationship, whatever you're working on, that would be my suggested path.
Love it, love it, love it. So I have a couple of questions for you. Now, what's the old saying? If there's no vision, the people will perish. It's an oldie. I forget who actually come up with that saying, but most of the things that you've run through, I teach, except I've never really gone too far into, the companies that I work with. I'm all about helping them grow their business, processes in place, leadership. So you've touched on a lot of that, Jairek. But when it comes to goal setting and visualization, I think it was, I forget who it was, a speaker by the name of Mel Robbins. I know there's no relationship, but I think you know Mel. And she says, as part of the goal setting process, people miss a very important step. When you're visualizing a goal, they focus on the end result, but instead they need to be focusing on the steps, the processes, because things just don't happen by thinking and manifesting them. So a lot of contractors that I work with, they see the really successful companies in the industry, and I've been part of best practice for many years, and they see the really successful companies where they've sold for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, but they're still stuck in the rat race. And it's the other thing that I learned from working with successful contractors and meeting successful entrepreneurs like yourself and Stephen. And I've been absolutely blessed with some of the people that I've met. But I think some of the contractors, they're missing a step. And I think you don't go from point A to point Z just by that. So there's a few steps that they're missing. What do you think the main thing that they're missing when it comes to making it happen?
Sure. So first off, with vision, if I were to give you a quick analogy or story to understand that concept, what Mel's saying is correct, but to make it simple for people to see the difference, if you went back to Walt Disney, like the original, the super creative, they were bringing the forefront of creativity to the marketplace at the time, way back when. Like Disneyland was something that like no one imagined could be real, that kind of concept, the physical park. In the beginning, the way the story or myth that I've heard is the way that they set up their building was on the very top floor. They had this group called Imagineers. And these people were the dreamers, the ones who had unfeathered imagination. They could come up with anything. I mean, imagine flying elephants. Imagine a movie where you dive down a rabbit hole and all of a sudden you're in an alternate universe. Imagine a boy that can fly and then he goes to this Neverland. Like they would create these incredible imaginative experiences and journeys and movies and thoughts and ideas and characters. Those people were on the top floor. The second floor below them was your strategic implementation team. This is strategy. This is project management. This is who's in charge of what. How long is it going to take? Are we on track? Are we making progress? Does it make sense? These are our managers and measurers and people doing the heavy lifting. And then on the bottom floor is risk. These are our accountants and our lawyers. Oh my gosh, that could pinch a kid's finger and this might cause someone to get hurt. And what about this? And do we think about that? And what about the trademark? And here's the key. They were not allowed to talk to each other. Risk was allowed nowhere near the Imagineers. Strategy was not allowed to talk to Imagineers. The only two departments that worked together was strategy and risk. And what would happen is the Imagineers would create this incredible vision with zero limitations, zero guardrails, zero no's. They could do whatever they want. They would pack it in an envelope. They'd send it down to the strategic department. Strategy would unpack and go, oh boy, look at the crazy stuff they came up with. How are we going to do this? I don't know. Bring the team in. Let's see what we can come up with. And they start working on how they could possibly make any of this come real. Once they had a plan, they sent it to risk, and risk says, oh, no, you forgot about this, and what about that, and where's the safety, and where's the trademark, and where's these pieces? They send it back to strategy. Strategy goes, shit, good ideas. They fix it up, send it back. They get more risk, fix it up, send it back. Risk and strategy kind of circle it until it's good, and then they sign off and go. And what you described when you just said this was a vision without a strategy goes nowhere. That's true. The only problem is if you let strategy and risk into the imagination meeting, it'll stomp on your vision all day long. And so if you were going to have a goal setting session to start the year, if you were going to have a creative planning session, set a timer, invite everyone to the meeting, and tell them what hat to wear. This is our visionary Imagineers meeting. There is no holds barred, no limitations, no eye rolling, no making fun of each other. We're going to dream as if anything was possible for the next 45 minutes. Write down all the things we think we can do as if there's no limits. After that meeting conducts, take a break, come back, take all the ideas, stuff them in an envelope, walk out of the room, come back in the room just so you can change hats and say, now we're the strategy team. Here's what these wahoos upstairs came up with. Let's stick it on the board and see what kind of actual strategic plan we can build and how realistic it is that we can achieve any of this stuff. Do that meeting for the next 3 or 4 hours to see what you can build strategically. When that meeting ends, call it, go out, come back, say, now we're the risk team. Let's see what are the holes. Let's poke some real holes in this project and let's see what absolutely might not work. Then come back and circle between risk and strategy until you come to a real conclusion of we believe in this plan, go make it happen. And so you have to split that up, because when people with good intentions start saying, well, a vision with no strategy leads you nowhere, it's true. And if you start sparking up the strategy and risk too early, you'll kill the vision of possibility. I mean, imagine if the lawyers and accountants would have come told Walt, yeah, this is real expensive. And shoot, I don't think this would even be possible. I mean, strategically speaking, how do you make an elephant fly? It would have never happened. And the only way the impossible becomes possible is when someone shows up that's a dreamer and is willing to dream so big and engage and enroll the strategy people to figure out how to make the impossible possible. But it takes all three.
I don't know if you're familiar with Gino Wickman and EOS. I have actually, and you've mentioned a few key words to me. You mentioned the word rocket fuel, and that's one thing. And I invested in one of the top EOS trainers on the planet. His name is Daniel Davies, based in Australia, and went on the EOS journey. Learned that, you know, companies have got visionaries and they've got integrators, and it's visionaries like me that tend to frustrate the hell out of the people doing it. And on the Walt Disney subject, his brother was the integrator. Walt was the visionary, and rumor has it that on his deathbed in hospital, they actually had the map of Orlando Disney World on the ceiling, and amazing story. So yeah, appreciate you sharing that, Jairek. So listen, we're probably getting towards the end, and again, I know that this will add a lot of value to our fellow contractors. And right now, everyone that I bring on the podcast, I want them to, you know, share their wisdom and what's actually inspiring you at the moment, as far as a book or a podcast or something that you feel will change some lives. Jairek?
Sure. I think my favorite thing So if I were to recommend a book to everyone listening, I mean, one of my favorites is probably Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, or the Greatest Thing Illuminated. Both of those books are a little dense to read, but it's really good on strategy and really good on risk management. Um, the what I'm up to right now is I'm actually starting to build into the private equity space where I want to start buying and merging a lot of these entities. So people listening, your community, if they're interested in selling at some point, tell them to ping me. And depending on what it looks like, I know the multiples are big, but I also know the ability to wrap them up and build them into a much larger portfolio makes a ton of sense. And so my next class personally is a private equity course by Wharton Business School that I'm working through. And I'm actually really fired up about that. I like the opportunity to bring things together, merge companies, build larger groups. I've been talking with a few friends who just purchased a company that's doing 1.3 billion, purchased a like company in a different state that was doing 320 million, put them together, and now he's got a 1.5 $1.6 billion entity that he's in charge of, and the ability to merge the co-CEOs and build the team and get them all streamlined and aligned is very exciting. So that sounds cool to me at this stage of life. Also, we train some of the best performance coaches on earth. So like you said, you teach a lot of these skill sets for people in their business if they want help applying those skill sets to their relationship. And I always say, what would it be like if you called your accountant and said, "Hey, how much money do we have?" And they said, "I don't know, but it feels pretty good." You'd be like, "That's not no, you're fired. Give me another accountant who can tell me exactly how much money is in the account." If I were to ask you, "How's your relationship doing?" Most of you would say, "I don't know, but it probably feels pretty good." You were fired. I need a metric. How is you doing? Give me the exact metric, the exact number that's in that bank account emotionally in your relationship. And so I take these same or similar concepts and I bring them over to your health, your relationship, your mindset. If you need any help with that, we've trained some of the best coaches on earth in these categories, and we'd love to help.
I have no doubt whatsoever. I know I've known you for some years now. I've been following you. I know what you're about. I love your father's work. He's amazing. But one thing is the HVAC space in residential is red hot. A lot of companies changing hands, private equities all over it. I've actually got some involvement in that space myself, but I'd
I
love to
love it.
get together at another time and discuss this further because, I've had this belief for many years that every business, doesn't matter what it is, needs to be built to sell, and that's why I love the Michael Gerbers and the E-Myth and all the systems and the processes and that go with that. So again, my friend, a really really big thank you, and we'll close out um, with how do our listeners get a hold of you and maybe you might have a little giveaway or something. We'll put some stuff in the show notes that can help all the contractors that I'm influencing reach out to you. But I'm going to let you close this out with just a little bit more about how we can reach you, Jairek.
Sure. You can find me on my website, jarekrobbins.com. You can find me on LinkedIn if you use that platform. If you need help with your relationship, you can go to thecore4challenge.com/masterclass. If you want to join us in a community online, a group of us all working together to get healthier, happier, stronger, fulfilled, and you want to focus on your health, wealth, relationships, and career, you can go to thecore4challenge.com. If you have any interest in improving your performance coaching skills, if you have a team and you want to become a better leader, a better manager of people, higher IQ, better decision making, you can go to performancecoachuniversity.com/apply.
Fantastic. Love it. And you've added so much value, not just to me. And I want to thank you personally. I've always said I do this, even if no one listens to the podcast, I do these for me because I get so much out of some of the guests that I've had on. So thank you. Thanks for all the listeners again for tuning in. And over and out from me. Thank you very much, Jairek, and I look forward to catching up with you. I'm gonna get to Puerto Rico one day. Not unless we catch up next time you're in the US. So thanks again, my friend. All the best to you.
Thank you.